Hey everybody, today we'll be talking about an upgrade guide for the Dash.io deck. Right here I have the Dash.io deck in front of me, and I'm just going to go over kind of what you should be looking for getting, and then later have a tier list of, what the best things to get are. Best bang for your buck basically is what I'm trying to do. The good thing about this Dash.io deck is that even at its most competitive state, pretty much for every competitive deck that I've interviewed people with, has been under $300, which definitely makes it one of the cheaper decks in the game right now. It's a very fun deck, it's a very competitive deck, and it's definitely like the cheapest aggro deck that you could be playing. If you don't want to be buying your Command and Conquers and your Warmongers right now, I would say getting into this deck and kind of getting all of those cards, and basically the only card that's expensive in this deck can go in any hero because it's a generic headpiece that is probably the best headpiece in the game right now. So good thing that can be easily transferable. And most of the M's in this deck aren't very expensive anyway. So yeah, we'll just start off going with what this deck is doing and where you can move to upgrade it. So here in the equipment suite for this deck is actually pretty good. Here we have this headpiece right here, and this headpiece basically can block for two and then one, and then it breaks itself. But that's really good. Blocking for three in this game, like for not using any cards from your hand, is a really good thing to be doing. This is a really serviceable headpiece for if you don't want to, spend the money on Crown of Providence just yet. But Crown of Providence is very good in our deck. It synergizes with us very well. The Ram Stop, this is probably one of the weaker pieces. This one also can block for two and then one, but this one kind of requires you to pitch to be able to block with it for two and then one. Well, for two, and then you have to pitch again to block with it for one, and that's not really where you want to be at whenever you're playing Dash.io. As you can see, as I'll say later in this deck tech right here, that it doesn't really make sense to be pitching on the other person's turn. Heavy Industry Power Plant. This chess piece is actually pretty good. Like very serviceable for being a 10-cent card or whatever this whatever this is. Being able to get a bunch of resources on your one pop off turn is very good, and it can basically make a max V for free. And then finally, we have the Heavy Industry Gear Shift. I think that these legs are great. I honestly run these in my competitive version of the list basically every time. There's sometimes where I'm running Achilles Accelerator, and there's also some people who do run Achilles Accelerator. The good thing about it is that Achilles Accelerator is 10 cents. So even if you don't want to just have the Heavy Industry Gear Shift, the upgrade or really side grade for those legs are really not much of a problem at all. So I want to go over first the cards that I'm really happy that they put in this. Some of the reprints that they've done, and some of the new cards that they've done as well. So first off, we have Maximum Velocity. Now this card is what the deck is kind of trying to do. As you can see, it costs 2 and it attacks for 10. This is one of the biggest like cards in the game, really. There's not too many things that attack for 10 that aren't Guardian, and there's definitely not anything that attacks for 10 that costs 2. So the resource cost for 10 damage there is really good. But it does have the requirement that you need to boost 3 times. Some things in Dash requires you to boost 3 times on the combat chain. So this is actually just this turn. So you can break the chain multiple times, maybe draw with a Cerebellum Processor breaking the chain. This just requires you to have done it 3 times in one turn. So it is kind of important to keep that mental track of, okay, I boosted once this turn, boosted twice, and then you look at the top card and you draw with a processor, break the chain, and then you boost your 3rd time. And then you can play your Maximum Velocity. Another thing that I really enjoy is this Rainbow 0 to 60 and Zipper Hit combination that they've put in. This card, both of these cards, and also this Red Throttle right here. So all of these cards are just very above rate. At red, we have Zipper Hit coming at 1 for 5 with Go Again. Boost is a downside. In Arcane Rising, 2019, boosting was a downside. Nowadays, boosting is pretty much all upside as long as you're able to manage your deck correctly. So we have a 1 for 5, a 0 for 4 Go Again, and a 2 for 6 go again. Now, this also counts as a popper for any sort of illusionist matchups that you're facing. But that comes with more kind of experience as you get into the game. And another card that I really enjoy that they put in this deck is Convection Amplifier. It really helps you put over the top a maximum velocity. Or if you have a big attack like a yellow or red zipper hit or a throttle, and you're able to give it dominate so that you can push over one of your boom grenades. Now, this card is this is kind of plan B to your maximum velocity plan A. Or, I mean, depending on how you play it, Boom Grenade could be plan A. I've seen many decks that are very successful have 9 Boom Grenades, and Boom Grenade is your plan A. You're just trying to get as much value off of those as possible. This is a 0 for 4, again, and it can also give you another action point if you play it off the top and crank it. So whenever you look at the top card of your deck, if you play a crank item off the top, then you'll go up to 2 action points because it refreshes an action point. So whenever you have 2 action points, that allows you to maybe shoot your pistol 2 times, or maybe not boost the card and then also come with or I guess you have to have boosted, but if you can do that multiple times, maybe you don't want to boost the top card of your deck, you can not boost the card and then swing with your pistol or something. Depends on just kind of what you want to do. And then, so now we'll go into the cards that I'm not really impressed with. Now, like this blue black up protocol. So, like, if you're playing this card, it's good that it's a blue crank item. So that's got that going for it. But if you're playing this off the top and you're getting an action point back, and then you're just buying back another blue from your deck without like doing anything, you've gone card neutral. Yes, you've gone up an action point, but it didn't really do much for you. I'm not very impressed with this card. It's not like you're ever trying to pitch a yellow to get a blue back. You're not really ever trying to like pitch on their turn. It's serviceable. I've seen it maybe as a one of in some lists, but if you need some more blue crank items, but thankfully we've gotten more blue crank items since this deck has come out that probably are just better. But yeah, maybe if you're really like item heavy, then this can stay in. But I would recommend getting rid of this. And then also the steam canisters. This one doesn't even crank. I guess it's good that it can, go back and give you maybe another turn with a processor, or if you didn't hit with your boom grenade, then you're able to do that. But it just really isn't very impressive. I mean, it doesn't block anything. It doesn't even have crank, so you can't even crank it off the top. It's just not really where you want to be. And another thing about this deck is the data links and these dissolving shields. Now, I think dissolving shield is a great card. Don't get me wrong. But it's kind of at odds with what the deck is trying to do. If you're trying to push boom grenades and push maximum velocities, this doesn't attack and it doesn't help you push anything. Whenever it's very good in this meta currently because we see a lot of ninjas with 1 attacks, flick knives specifically. This is very good against. Anytime that you're getting Art of the Dragon Fire or Art of the Dragon Blooded, Art of the Dragon Fire, I think it's Art of the Dragon Fire, that it does 2 damage to you automatically. You're able to prevent that damage. It is a good meta call. It might be good in certain matchups, but I would not have 3 of in the main board here. Another thing about this deck is that there is no sideboard. A lot of people coming from other TCGs specifically will think, okay, I'm an aggro deck. I need to be running 60 cards all the time to get as good as possible, all of my chances of hitting as possible. But with this deck, you're gonna go through your whole deck. Now, this is just a flesh and blood thing in general. Is you're gonna be seeing a lot more cards. You're probably gonna see your whole deck at some point. So you don't really have to be as aggressive with all of being as it's not consistent because you're still just as consistent as long as your ratios are correct. If all of your ratios are fine, then you can play with 67 cards and you're honestly just as consistent as playing with 60. And a lot of matchups, you will need to be playing with that many cards because it gets really scary. I've won many games with boosting the last card out of my deck at the end. Like, there are a lot of times where you will have less than 5 cards left in your deck. And having a 60 card just is not enough for a lot of matchups that we're going to be playing in. So very much consider having less or more than 60 cards. There's a lot of matchups I play 63 to 67, and there's even some matchups where I'm playing a full 70 to 72 cards. So even whenever you're just starting out and getting this deck, you can keep these theme canisters and these blue protocols and these dissolving shields just to have them in the deck as boost. Like, you can just buy all the cards that I'm talking about now and then basically just be able to boost these away. Another thing is this data link. It, you know, the on hit is okay. It's the same on hit as dive through data here, but the difference between these two is that this one attacks for 4, which allows you to push boom grenades. This one only attacking for 3 is just easily one card blocked there, and it just doesn't really have the spice that you want. If you're running, 21 blues like this list is, then having a blue data link is actually not bad. There's a few cards that are honestly just as expensive as data link that I will be talking about later, and you can easily replace those with those. And another thing is the 2 new cards that they printed in this deck actually are basically what brought Dash.io into the meta in the first place, and even after the high octane banning, they're still kind of carrying her. First, we have Cerebellum Processor. Now, this card is what is basically carrying her. If you have 2 action points, because once per turn action, 0, draw a card, this does not have go again. So, to draw a card without ending your turn, then you need to have this and 2 action points. Once you have 2 action points, you're able to look at the top card of your deck, say, oh, I don't want that one, play a boost card, get rid of it. And then you look at the top card, it's like, oh, now it's an item. So you pitch to play the item, you crank the item, and you have 2 action points. Then you can draw a card for free, basically, and then continue your turn. It also just is a ponder, which is at the end of your turn you can draw. If you play out your whole hand and then you have a Cerebellum Processor on the battlefield, you can still just draw at the end of your turn, go to 0 action points, and then arsenal and pass. And that makes this card very strong. It basically means that you're not going to have an off turn for the next 3 turns. And if you're playing Dash.io correctly, then the game should only be going 3, 4, 5 turns long. 5 is even like a long time for a game, especially at only 60 cards. You might not even have enough cards to be doing that. And then secondly, we have Fast and Furious here. This is another just amazing card. It's another possible 0 for 4. If you've cranked this turn, then it's +1, so it's a 4. So it can push boom grenades over. And if it does get boosted, then you can put an item or a steam counter on an item with crank. So if you have a Cerebellum Processor out and it's like, oh, it's my last turn with the processor, and you see this on top and you boost it, then it's like, let's go. We got one more turn with the processor. You can draw Arsenal Pass. This card is sneakily good. People don't really think about it very much, but every single time that I boost this off the top and put another counter on my processor, or if they really hard commit to blocking their whole hand because you have a red boom grenade on board or something, and they really hard commit and they block their whole hand and they're like, okay, we got through the boom grenade turn, we're good. And then your last boost is a Fast and Furious and you put the counter back on the boom grenade and they're like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe I just gave up my whole hand to stop this from hitting, and now it's just gonna hit anyway. So that's basically what you're trying to do with this deck is push boom grenades over and play at an unfair axis with the Cerebellum Processor here. And then so now I'll go into this. All right, yeah, now we have this tier list that I created here. This is just basically your immediately upgrades that you're kind of looking to get as fast as possible. Good bang for your buck value here. These are the more expensive cards that I would say get, but if you can't afford them right now, then maybe save up a couple paychecks or whatever you need to do to get those. But they're very good. These cards in this tier, you could just wait on them. They're not really like that important to your deck. And it also kind of depends on what your meta is and what you're trying to do with it. And then this last tier here, we have just cheap bulk cards. There's plenty of these in Dash.io, and basically, like, there's no reason to not buy them. They're just very good cards, and they're, less than 10 cents most of the time. So I know that this is kind of a little awkward to see, but here we have just basically the cards that you're going to be looking at immediate upgrades on. So we'll start off with these cheap bulk cards. This card right here is Dumpster Dive. It's a 1 for 4, and it says that if you were to boost a item off the top, then it gets +1 attack. So a 1 for 5 with well, sometimes 1 for 5. So it's a good card. It also costs less than 10 cents. We have Fender Bender here. For all of these cards down here, I would just recommend getting red, yellows, and blues. Yellows probably won't be coming up very often in your time as a Flesh and Blood player, but why not? Just have them just in case. But reds and blues definitely. Fender Bender here. This one is a 1 for 4 also, and if it gets blocked by an equipment, for each equipment blocking it, it gets +1 attack. So it kind of goes over their ability to block with any equipment. And with Fender Bender, we also have Outpace. Both of these cards kind of go together. Outpace just can't be blocked by equipment, so this one's very good to give Dominate to with the item that gives Dominate. This one, Convection Amplifier. Because they can only block with one card from hand for it, and that's very good if they don't have an arsenal, or if you know that they don't have a D-reactant arsenal. And also down here we have T-Bone. T-Bone is a rare from a long time ago, and this card is super good in the meta right now. This one says if you've boosted on this combat chain, then they must block with an equipment. And there's a lot of decks out there, specifically the ninjas, who really want to hold on to their equipment as long as possible. And it also just kind of starts that early game of stripping their equipment down, because there's kind of two games that you play with Dash.io. There's one in which the opponent has equipment, and one where they don't have equipment. And they have to start blocking out boom grenades from hand, and then it starts getting really, really bad for them. And as soon as you can strip all of their equipment away from them, that's where you want to be. Another one is Achilles Accelerator. Like I said earlier, a lot of people prefer this one. I kind of like the being able to block for one on the other boots better. This one also has Arcane Barriers, so if you have a lot of wizards in your area, then it helps out with that, and also Rune Blades as well. It has Arcane Barrier 1. And then here we have Goliath Gauntlet. This is just a really cheap card. It gives +2 to your next attack. That costs 2 or more. There's another card that does almost the same thing. It says reveal the top card of your library. It gets -X attack, where X is the pitch value of it. So if you flip over a red, which you know the top card of your library, you should always be flipping reds for that, then you can give +2 to any attack. And then finally, it looks like, we have, this one is a blue throttle. Blue throttle is great. The red throttle attacks for 6 and costs 2. The fact that this card is a blue and attacks for 4 is just amazing. So then we can go on this little wait on it tier. For this one, I would put Twin Drive in this one. This card's honestly one of the most expensive cards in the Dash.io deck, and I don't even run it in my deck. I think it's a good card. It allows you to go, Twin Drive into Pulse Wave Harpoon off of a 3-card hand, which is very good. Strip something from theirs, but it's just the most expensive card, and it doesn't really do that much. Like, if it's good, it's really good, but if it's bad, it just feels so bad to be playing. It's a 2 for 5 with boost, basically. And it's just, like, not really where you want to be, honestly. Another one that I would put in this tier list is Null Time Zone. This one is a blue crank item that allows you can play it off the top, and whenever you play it, you may name a card, and they can't pitch or play that card from their hand. They can arsenal it and play it. This card I would say wait on. I don't think it's very expensive right now, but I would tell a new player to wait on it, because it requires a lot of knowledge of the game and like what other decks are trying to do, and it's not really like doing much for you offensively. It's just more stopping the opponent from doing their game plan. And if you're a new player, then you don't really know what the opponent's game plan is, and you don't really know what to name. If you would like to learn more about it and know what to name, I have a video with my buddy Taro about the best name targets for Null Time Zone. But go watch that one if you want to play this. I don't think it's very expensive. Honestly, none of these cards are very expensive. I would just recommend picking up everything, but this is more so how to go about acquiring them. Another one that I think that you could wait on is honestly Heist. This card is also great. It's a 2 for 5, and it has an on hit that you can bring an item from your banish zone onto the arena, so you can crank that item and refresh an action point, basically. But it's also one of the more expensive cards, and doesn't really need to be in your deck if you're looking at kind of being on a budget here. And then finally, we have good bang for your buck. Actually, no. I'm gonna put the adaptive plating over here and wait on it as well. I don't think that you really need the adaptive plating immediately. I think that like if you just have one of these two arm pieces, or this arm piece, bracers, Goliath Gauntlet, or Bracers of Belief, then you're kind of good on arm pieces. This one is very helpful in some matchups that provide you a lot of on hits, or like the Prism matchup or the Assassins. But it is a little bit more expensive right now, especially more expensive than the bulk that that somebody will probably give you that for free. Um, so yeah, I would probably say wait on it, but this is probably like top of the tier list on wait on it for I would get this one before I got this one, basically, before I got these two. I think that this card's very good. And then we've got good bang for your buck. I think BIOS update is up there. This card is a action card on an attack, but it says if you boost, it gives your next boost attack +3. And if you boost an item with cost 2 or less, then it goes onto the arena immediately. So that allows you to get 3 action points because you can boost an item, crank it, and then you can play an item off the top, crank it. And then that really allows you to kind of go over the top, or actually too wide for any kind of people to go against you. And it also synergizes very well with this Teklo Pounder. Now, this is a 2-cost item. This one's a little bit more expensive, and it basically gives your first boost attack every turn +2 attack. So it goes really well with the Convection Amplifier. If you're able to get 3 Teklo Pounders on the battlefield at the same time, then you're able to give your first attack +6 every single time. Now just imagine you're giving a throttle to every single attack. Like this is just, it's really allowing you to go too tall for any of the people to stop. And it's also very good if you have like 2 of these and you play a BIOS update, then you can go +3 and then 2 and 2. And you're giving something plus what, 4, 7? You're giving something +7. That's automatically a break point. Like you're doing very well on that. Next, we have a Signal Jammer. I think that this card is pretty good versus the Wizards, especially Kano, and also very good versus the Rangers. And it's also just a cheap card. Like, it's not very expensive to buy. I think that this card kind of goes in your sideboard pretty well. Maybe it could be in wait on it. Maybe it could be bang for your buck. But, I think that this card's pretty good against if you have a lot of Kanos in your area, which, I have a couple, so this card can do pretty well. Another card up here is this one. Speaking of Kano, this one has AB2, Arcane Barrier 2, so you're able to block out basically 3 damage from anything with just the blue, or any arcane damage with the Visiertronic and the boots there. Very good right there. And then, honestly, this card, I would want to put it in immediate upgrade because I think it's the best card in the deck, and we're the best deck at using it. But it is definitely the most expensive card. I think it's north of $100 right now, USD. So I would definitely just wait on it. But if you can afford it, this would probably be my first upgrade to the deck, just because of how well it works with our hero ability. I think that the Crown of Providence, and also it's the only card in the deck that can be transferred from this deck to a different deck. So if you're not sure if you want to get into Dio and you're just like, oh, I'm trying to play on a budget and get into the game because it's the Armory deck that interests you the most, there's a lot of other decks that play this one. So if you have this one, then you can go into other decks as well. Next, we have the Hanabi Blaster. This card is very good for any of your upgrades. For any of your like mid-range matchups, a lot of people with action cards. This is a weapon that says remove whenever you play your 3rd boost card every turn, then you can put a Steam counter on it. Now, not boost 3 times, it's play your 3rd boost card. So you don't need to boost the last one. You put a Steam counter on it, and you can remove 2 Steam counters on it to attack for 5 with Overpower. Overpower means that they can only block with 1 action card. So if there's, Rune Blades that have most action cards that are either attack actions or actions, then you're able to kind of get through and they can't block at all. And it allows you to go over the top just in case. If they don't have any D-reacts or attack reacts as well, they can block with those. I forgot about Sprocket Rocket down here in the cheap bulk. Sprocket Rocket over here is it's a 0 for 3, but if you boost an item, it's the same thing as the Dumpster Dive over here. If you boost an item, then it gets +1. But 0 for 4 is very good. I would say it's much better than this Dumpster Dive here. It's just a lot. Having 0 is very good. Like any card game, if something's free, it's probably, at least playable. And then here we have these 4 cards for immediate upgrade. This is the most expensive immediate upgrade that I would say. I think it's 20 to 30 USD right now, somewhere around there. So not too expensive for legendary equipment, but it is Teklo Foundry Heart. It says if you've boosted this turn, pay 1, or I think it's only if you've boosted this turn. Anyway, semantics there. But if you've boosted this turn, then you can pay 1, and you can banish the top 2 cards of your deck and get a resource for each Mechanologist card. We're only playing Mechanologist cards. So it's basically a free extra resource. You're plus a resource for the rest of the game if you want to do it. I wouldn't recommend doing it every turn because, like I said earlier, you don't really have that many cards in your deck. You kind of chew through them pretty quickly, so you don't want to be doing that every single turn. But it is very good because it also has Battle Worn too. Battle Worn means that whenever you block with it, the first time it gets a -1 counter. Whenever you block with it, the second time it gets another -1 counter. But it doesn't go away. It stays on the field. It's what LSS calls sip sip. Start in play, stay in play. And they've kind of veered away from making these because they're a little bit too powerful. They only want to do it if it's like a very good card, or maybe the effect on it isn't that great, or maybe like it has to destroy itself later in the game. But this one never has to destroy itself. It blocks for 3, it blocks for 2 and then 1, and it also gives you an extra resource for the rest of the game. Very good. Secondly, we have this Pulse Wave Harpoon here. So Pulse Wave Harpoon is a very, very good card. It is our one piece of disruption that we have. It says for every single time you've boosted this combat chain, so you need to not break the chain, so you can't draw with processor, then you may they reveal 3 cards from their hand, and you may put an action card onto the combat chain defending this. So if you boost 3 times, then they have to show you 3 cards from their hand, and you could put any 3 block. You have to put a card with equal to or less than the amount of time defense value, the amount of times that you've boosted this turn. So if you boosted 3 times, then you get to see 3 cards from their hand, and you may put an action card that has 3 or less base block. If you've only boosted 2 times, like this counts itself as well. So if you play boost and then then they show you 2 cards from their hand, and you may put a card with 2 or less base block onto the combat chain blocking. So basically, this is our only piece of disruption. You get to look at their hand, first of all, so you know what they're doing. Also very good for Null Time Zone. If you can look at their hand and you can play Null Time Zone off the top and name whatever card is in their hand that they want to play or pitch. And then you also just take away a card from them most of the time. You get something from them, and it's a very good card. It's a 1 for 4, so it also pushes breakpoints and pushes boom grenades possibly. But here we have Teklo Core. This is an item. It's a blue item, no crank. It's too old for that. But it comes in with 2 steam counters, and at the start of your action phase, then you remove a steam counter and you make 2 resources. Now, this card is basically, it just allows so many just devious turns, basically. You're able to just get so much free value off of this. This is 4 resources over the course of 2 turns, and it basically means that you don't have to pitch for your next 2 turns. So you get actual 5-card hands. I know that like people will be like, oh yeah, I played a 5-card hand. Yeah, you have to pitch one of those cards. We don't have to do that, and we're coming at you for 4 on hit, 6 4 on hit, and then it's like, you want to block all this out? You can't, because I'm just going to go too wide. And then finally we have the best card in the deck, Spark of Genius. This one is XX yellow action, and it says that you may pay X to go find an item with that value. So if you pay 0, then you can go find a 0 cost item. So Spark of Genius is 0. Teklo core is 0, boom grenade is 0, backup protocol is 0, cerebellum processor is 0. You're mostly paying 0 for this, unless you're in a fatigue matchup and it's very early into the game and you want to pay 4 into it to go grab a Teklo pounder because Teklo pounder costs 2, then you can do that. And it also says if you've boosted this turn, so you can go grab any item and then put it onto the arena. So if you crank that item, then you get your action point back. So it's basically has go again. And if you've boosted this turn, then you also draw a card. So this is the best card in the deck by far. I've heard people tell me that this card is just Pot of Greed, except you get to draw one of the cards. Pot of Greed is draw 2 cards, but you get to choose one of the cards that you draw. If you need a processor at the time, then you can get the processor. If you go, attack with a boom grenade behind and they just say no blocks, they're like, oh, I'm going to be able to swing back for more than this anyway. So whatever, you can boom grenade me. And then you play this, go grab another boom grenade. And they're like, oh, well, now I have to play against 2 boom grenades. It really makes them think. And then most of the time, you're probably grabbing processor. But also, if you get this on turn 0, then you're able to play out your hand, maybe leak a couple damage. And then play this, go grab a Teklo core so that the next 2 turns you don't have to pitch. And you still draw a card and you can put it in your arsenal. But yeah, so this is basically what I would say is a good path to upgrade. So the cheap bulk cards here, just buy them. They're less than 10 cents. I'm sure someone will just give them to you for free. If you go to your armory, someone will be like, oh yeah, I've got 15 Goliath gauntlets in some bulk box back in my basement. So just take it. I don't care. All these cards, someone will probably give it to you. These cards here, I'd probably wait on them. I think that they're a little bit expensive for either expensive or kind of hard to play with for a new player. I don't think that it's extremely worth it to go buy 3 twin drives at $25 or whatever they're at right now for a new player. It just doesn't really make sense. And then these good bang for your buck cards, I think literally the only card in here that's actually prohibitively expensive, I would say, is this cop, Crown of Providence, and it's $100. It can go in a lot of different decks. I mean, I would say that it's just fine, but I would say between these cards right here, this is a $40 upgrade. 40, 50. I haven't done the exact math, so I don't know, but around $40 to $60 for these 1, 2, 3, 4, these 8 cards right here would be very good upgrade, and you'd be really chilling with Armory. You could easily win armories with this, with just these upgrades right here. And I think that this deck is very good. It's very fun. It's a very good deck to learn on. It's just aggressive. There are a lot of lines that you can be doing, and it's just a very fun deck. If you like being able to take a lot of game actions, being able to draw a lot of cards, being able to do a lot of damage, I mean, it's just kind of everything in one. You just have to hope that you're not, drawing poorly. This deck is very susceptible to some brick hands, drawing a lot of items. But whenever this deck likes you, it's just running on all cylinders, and it's just so much fun to play. But yeah, thank you very much for checking out the little tier list that I made and a little upgrade guide to the Dash.io deck. I plan on doing some of these for the other decks, some of the other Armory decks like Aurora or Azalea. And, leave a like and subscribe. I'm going to leave my deck list down in the description below that I play with at my RTNs. And, if you also want to join the Dash.io Discord in the purple Discord, there's always people in there talking, always people scheming up some different stuff. And I really love seeing all of those people. But yeah, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. Thank you very much.